All right, sorry for the slight delay, but we are ready for the January 20th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Somerville Design Review Board. Tim, if you want to get us started, this is, assume there's no signs.
There are no signs.
Okay, so first order of business is under old business, 610 West 5th.
You skipped over.
North
the
Street.
minutes.
Do the minutes.
Oh, the minutes, yeah, sorry.
I like the minutes.
Okay, that's
Yeah, we can make a motion on that.
the motion by Bill, a second by
second it.
Candy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. First order of business is 610 West 5th North Street. You'd sign in at the podium and state your role, name and role in the project, please. And if there's any staff comments, if we could read those, the highlights of those.
As was stated, the first item under old business is 610 West 5th North Street. The applicant is requesting final approval of a proposed new mixed-use development, including 2 5,000 square foot commercial buildings and 4 6-unit residential buildings. This was last at the board for preliminary approval on November 18th. Essentially, the only comment is that the photometric plan currently does not meet the requirements of Chapter 9. That's something that staff can work on with the applicant. The rest is architectural as far as it goes, contributing to the conversation here tonight for this project.
Okay.
All right.
I'm Laura Middleton with the Middleton Group. We're the architects on the project.
Give me 1 second. Where do you want to start?
Well, there really weren't any civil related comments or conversation really last time. So I thought we could probably, and there really weren't any changes on that as well.
No, that's correct.
So we can skip that. Let's start with the landscape plan.
Yes.
So there were a few comments about that. And as I go, I'm really going to focus on the comments from the previous meeting. So there was some conversation about the number of oaks along 78, and we have added 2 oak trees there, as well as some additional planting material. So we now are meeting that spacing requirement there. The other landscape changes that we kind of made on our own is just changed some of the canopy trees in the parking lot, just some more appropriate species. We've got some oaks and some elms now in those parking islands. I think that's really the main changes there on the landscape. I think we've addressed those comments. If you will go to the architectural site plan A100, let me just point out a couple things. Oh, that's kind of tiny. Well, one of the comments was regarding the utilities, particularly for the townhome buildings, I believe, but we've addressed the utilities and are showing them for all of the buildings. So we do have some small mechanical enclosures, which you can see on this plan. So on kind of plan north and south of the commercial buildings, and then try to tuck them in as best we could in the little nooks in the townhome buildings. And I think you can see those in some of the renderings, but that would be the electrical meters and the condensing units. So we've got those all screened. The townhome buildings on the interior, most of those units are just in the back of the building on that side. And then if we can, let's go to just go a couple more to 104 to the elevation drawings. Yeah. So on the townhomes, there were a couple comments here, and we did restudy the center of those buildings, and there was a lot of conversation about the authenticity of, it reading as 6 units instead of previously it was reading kind of as 5 units. And so we did restudy that center and changed that center unit to or center section of the building, I should say, to kind of those 2 units now kind of read, and then we have a little bump out there with a roof. So that element changed a little bit. I think it's more authentic now to the building floor plan, which didn't really change. We modified it slightly for that elevation change, but floor plans remain the same. We added some detailing, as we developed. You can see some brackets now in those gables, and added some additional trim to give it more detail. And I think, we added some gutters and downspouts. So those are all shown now as well. Okay, and if you'll go to the commercial building, so a couple more, and no changes there. So let's look at the elevations. Oops.
Oh, where is it?
Should
There
be,
we
yep, okay, too fast. So here, again, we added some details. One of the comments was about the strengthening kind of the roof, I think size and detailing. So we studied that, and we did increase the fascia depth on those and added some trim, which just wasn't there because we weren't kind of at that level of detail yet. We do have some louvers in those gables as well for the HVAC. So those were the majority of the changes. We did really consider the board's comment about the 2 buildings being identical. And really, when we looked at it, if we made small changes to make them different, we felt it was just going to read as a mistake. If it was just a color change or just kind of a small change. And we really still feel that these buildings are situated close enough together that it really reads as one building. And so we didn't want them to be drastically different either. So while we did look at that, we ended up coming back to just keeping them the same in terms of color and detailing. So I guess we can look at the 3D renderings. I think would be helpful to just go through. Yeah, so you can see there some of the colors, and then we've brought a material board for the board to see. So, and pretty consistent brick color, and there's a little bit of brick on the townhouse, and then like the commercial building. That would be roof color. This is the darker pink accent paint that we use both on the townhomes, on the columns, and I believe that addresses all the comments. So that's all I have. Is there any questions?
Any comments from the board or questions?
I think it looks pretty good. I think you covered everything.
I would agree. I think it's well presented. Color combinations are appropriate. And I like the 2 buildings, the commercial buildings. They're close enough. Them being alike actually makes sense in that setting, I think. So
I agree. In that setting, does make sense. All right, if that's, there are no further comments, can we have a motion for final approval?
I'll make a motion for final approval as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks so much. Good job.
If you want to take it with you, that'd be great, but send me a picture of it so that I can get does it have the material names and whatnot on it? Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Next is Martins Creek Townhomes.
So the second item under old business, apologize, is request for preliminary approval of a proposed new 65-unit townhome development on 5.29 acres. This was last at the board in September 2021, where it received conceptual review. The applicant must provide a mitigation plan for the preserved trees that will be impacted by the construction. The plan must be approved by the town's arborist. Site amenities include a dog park, shade structures, and benches. Generally, the architecture and design of the proposed units meets the design guidelines. Proposed elevations include horizontal and vertical siding, some brick and asphalt, and standing seam metal roof. It's up to the board now on the design aspect of it.
You
Turn
start
it
with
over to
that.
the
Yeah,
applicant.
start with that slide.
What is that?
Just ask if you could start with that slide.
Okay.
Just
Good
for
evening. Good afternoon.
context.
My name is Chris Donato. I'm with SiteCast. We are the engineers on the project. We have done a fair amount of work since the last time we've seen you. Last time we came, we had very minimal architecture, and we've been able to beef that up. But and also from an engineering perspective, we've actually gone a pretty far ways with Somerville CPW on how we're going to serve the site from a water and sewer perspective. But more importantly, we've had an extensive review with Dorchester County Public Works, since we will be tying into their drainage system for the drainage. They asked us for a full drainage study of this site and downstream, which we provided them, and they reviewed it. I don't have anything written, their approval, but the conversation was we agree with our methods for the design. So that was a big hurdle. We've also developed further the landscaping plan, which the staff comment is will provide mitigation for the trees impacted, which we'll definitely have on our next plan. On our buffer and mitigation landscape plan, we are showing plantings and mitigation plantings for, I believe there was 5 tree removals that we have. The arborists already met the arborists on site and had been given approval for those removals. So this plan addresses that removal. And we also were able to further develop the open space by showing trails and some park areas and some benches. We're kind of excited about the open space as we are above the required amount. And I sincerely apologize that our architect could not be here. Mr. Michael Scratch with the Southeast Design Group was unable to attend. We are not wedded to any of the details and colors. So if there's input that you would love to give us, we'd love to take it and incorporate it into the next submittal. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And just to clarify the staff comment concerning the mitigation, it's how the trees that are specifically impacted. This tree here between building 9 and 10 and building 4, these 2 are the trees that are impacted the most. They have retaining walls that will be impacting the critical root zones. The arborist is okay with what they're doing, but he does want a written plan that details how they'll offset those impacts on those specific trees.
So we've already had Mike Russell on site
Yeah.
to review the trees. Our plan is to get Mr. Russell this plan and ask for a full detailed assessment on how during construction we can make certain we keep these trees as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
I've done that with him before, and And we've already looked at the grading plan once. We think we can potentially even reduce some of these retaining walls as
Okay.
well. Working with the builder on how to step the pads. We have a fair amount of fall. If you're looking at plan view from left to right, I think it falls almost 10 feet
Yeah.
in a
that's what
very
I saw.
short period of time. What you're trying to put flat pads makes it challenging, and been able to work with a builder on how to, maybe we can step the pads, reduce the amount of retaining walls, reduce the fill. We're working on that.
Tim, can you scroll through the architecture?
We'll
We can
get
just-
there. Do you want the, I think these are, we just have the rendering.
So we have sort of two types of buildings. We have front loaded, which as you see here, which most of the units will be, but then we were also, we really like the idea of having some rear loaded units that front Martins Creek. We thought that'd be a nice look as you drive into the development. And so that's why we have the two different plans. We didn't feel like accessing units off of Martins Creek, which also serves the apartment complex with driveways and things like that, was the best thing to do. So that's why we have the two different situations. We had a fireworks display. Unfortunately, we can't see it at the moment, but that's how we wanted to end our presentation with fireworks.
Yep. Let's go to the top.
They are, and and then they all won't be exactly as far as this scenario. We want the ability, if you can see some of the trees, we want to make sure we stay away from. So sometimes maybe the two garages will be next to each other, and some others they won't. So it won't be this exact scenario all the way across. But in essence, yes, sir, we'll be combining. If you're looking at a 4-unit, that'll be together as an 8-unit. Okay. I do not. No, sir.
Especially with grade change.
I think that I noticed a lack of porches.
Mhm.
Like this, the one on the screen even looks like, I don't know, at most 5 feet deep. I think I'd want you to consider porches. And we're missing both architects tonight, but I know that they would say, like Matt said, we're going to want to see the complete unit put together, and even how, if it varies as you go around the site, you're going to want to see how each one of those looks.
Okay.
Like if you have the garages together on one and apart on another or whatever, we need to see examples of both. And I would encourage you to use porches. These are townhomes. They're not apartments. Whether it needs to be the front or the back, I'm not sure, but usable, outdoor space is to consider.
Some of them, you can tell on the site plan about the driveways, what's front, what's back.
Yeah.
But the driveways don't face the main streets like Martins Creek. Or you don't face that with driveways. You're facing that with other elevations of the building.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
The driveways are all internal to the project.
Correct. We felt like
I see it right there on the site plan.
W-
Those dark driveways are.
correct. I'll just say that it's more expensive for us to bring those driveways in off, internally rather than Martins Creek. It just didn't feel like it wouldn't look, number one, it wouldn't look good. Number two, it's not the safest option. It's better to pull into an alley than to be pulling out of Martins Creek, which has a bunch of units. So it just seemed like the best thing for the whole is to have it internal.
I think you're.
So the back of the units closest to Martins Creek, that's the back of the units, right?
Well, no, so we have a elevation that shows, actually I have it here, you know, which doesn't have the, they're two different architectural units. So we didn't just flip it. So you look at the back, you'll be looking at the front, and then the garage will be in the back. And we have an elevation of that. And so we provided two elevations, one with the garage in the front, one with the garage in the back. So right here is the garage in the back. So this will be facing Martins Creek. So the developer of this project also owns the apartment site. It is important to him that it looks, it's a whole project for him. It's not just this townhome. So it's important to him that it has a nice look as you drive in.
But like Bill said, that's only 2 units. You'd have 8 together.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Okay. Generally, I think generally 8 is too many as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Unless
because
it's a very urban.
if you look at the 8 windows on the second floor, imagine that across 8 buildings.
This would be a lot. I think.
It's 32 windows and about 12 inches between them.
You can use the same elevation, you got to change some.
We can definitely take a look at that.
And then that roof line continuous for 8 units. would be I'm sorry.
No,
couldn't hear.
I heard you.
Okay, but I think it gets to be too much roof line, many windows on the second floor repetitively, and too much repetition.
Gotcha. I can see that. I believe there it is. That's the back.
The back look as good as the front do. That's a good,
I think
good characteristic.
generally, and I'm not an architect, I'm just a engineer. I think I'm just a lowly civil. I think generally they look nice. I mean, I've done a lot of townhome projects. This is a nicer look than a lot of those townhomes look like. And I think in concept we're close to a nice looking building, but as I said, you know, we'll definitely take the input that you're giving us.
You could almost put 2 units like this and then turn the next 2 units around so that your back elevation is on the front side, or vice versa, however you want to call it. But then your roof line gets broken up, your elevations get broken up window wise. You got a little bit of the building step in, step out a little bit. That might be a solution.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing I said first. My biggest concern, especially if you look at the site plan, is the lack of porch comment, because think about completing the street from Martins Creek. So how's that going to really look on the street? And if it's encouraging people to sit on the porch and interact with the rest of the community, talk to people on the sidewalk, it just seems more like a neighborhood. If you do little things like that, rather than just kind of a collection of townhomes and everyone goes in and there's no place to, you just meet your neighbors. Remind me, does this have an amenity center, or how are they handling amenity building?
This particular development does not have an amenity center.
It's using the.
Well, I don't want to make any promises.
Gotcha.
I can't do that. That's up for them to decide. Maybe we can have an answer for you next time, but
Sure.
I don't want to sit here and tell you one way and it not be true.
Yeah, I just want.
I don't think
really-
that question's been fully answered, but
Well, and really, where I'm coming from is there an amenity building that we need to look at that's just not in the packet yet? That's all.
Okay.
So if there's not.
they're in the process of rehabbing the whole facility.
Yeah.
If you ever get run out there, you can tell which buildings have been rehabbed and which have not.
Okay.
That's better. Sorry for coming in late. But what I picked up was this is one of the buildings. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Can we go back to the site plan again and show us which one this is?
So this would be building 8 or building 3. If you look at just plan view, bottom right, next to the roundabout, that's one right there. And then building 8 at the top right corner as well.
Okay. And so you don't have three-dimensional views of the other buildings?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. So the only concern based on, I think Bill's very perceptive comments is if you come in for a final next time, we're really seeing those bigger buildings for the first time. So there's kind of a gambit.
And the connected
On your
ones
part.
are problematic.
Excuse me. So I don't see a problem with the smaller buildings you've shown.
Right.
But then, I think the idea is for preliminary, we kind of see everything and give comments on everything. And so for final, we've already seen everything.
Right.
But in this case, final, we're going to be seeing things for the first time, which is kind of a little risky on your part. But, if that's how you want to do it, that's fine. I'm worried based on Bill's comments that, things just look different as they get.
Sure. No, I understand. I apologize for not knowing the answer to this question, but if we come back with final with all the buildings and there are issues, obviously we can get denied. Is that like a year before we can come back, or is it just another month?
No, it's just your,
Okay.
Or you can, there's nothing to say you have to come back for final. You can come back for more of a preliminary,
Okay.
and the drawings you provided are great, very helpful. They're very nicely drawn. There's no questions left unanswered
Sure. On those two.
on those two.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So if you could come back with similar quality for the other buildings, that would be a huge help.
That will definitely happen.
and you could also theoretically, you could come back with what you have already, but just bring more buildings back.
Sure.
So you're not spend a lot of engineering time. And that affects the schedule, of course, but you can come back with just more buildings.
Sure.
If you wanted to do it that way. So there's options moving forward. I don't think you're getting a lot of pushback on the site plan aside from not really pushback, but an idea of stacking those driveways like Bill suggested, which is pretty solid. But for what you are, you're close. What you have, you're close.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments?
I have, is there a way to do the two buildings to the left? And again, I think 7 and 8 unit buildings is too much. And those two buildings to the left, probably a good example of why. Is there a way to do that without shared driveways? I think that sounds good in theory, but it doesn't work good in reality.
We were really, that's a large red oak right in front of, say, building 4. Trying not to impact that tree as little as possible. And then to shift the building down, there's 2 trees there. To shift the building up, there's another 2 trees there. We were just telling you our mindset was.
Yeah, I understand.
It was a little tight. So that's why we went with that. But I mean, we're happy to at least take a look and see what we can come up with.
So, I mean, I think, for example, if building 4 were 2 3-unit buildings instead of a 7-unit building, that might work better.
Sure. Okay, we can look at
I
that.
don't think you necessarily have to maximize every square inch of developable space.
Yeah, we're happy to take a look at that.
Okay.
I think your architect's done a good job with the two elevations with the 2-unit concept. He just needs to stretch out and to go to 8, change his design concept. Maybe get onto a whole totally new concept for the other 2 buildings next to 2. And then kind of rotate them, alternate them, and pick up another design concept so that he's breaking up roof lines better and you know, get the long dish of windows on the second floor and
It'd probably be
breaking
worth-
up the roof line and the window lines, I think is, the you know, the big thing with multiple units in line.
Yeah, I
He
think
can
those,
Figure that out.
I
he
think that's a
can
very
figure
valid
that out.
comment,
Yeah.
especially the windows. I mean, on a smaller unit, I think it looks okay, but if you add
Yeah.
more, that's a lot of windows.
There's a lot of windows.
Probably worth, when you come back, show the entire elevation along Martins Creek. It
Mhm.
shows all 3 buildings, or if it's up means 4 buildings or whatever, show all of them. And really think, design that street so we can
Okay.
see what that entire run looks like. That, I think that's primary importance. And then the secondary importance is once you get into the site, because this is kind of reads as the public street a little bit more so than the others do.
Sure. Okay.
They're asking for preliminary approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
Make motion preliminary approval with comments noted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next is 602 Bacon's Bridge Road, the Harris Teeter Fuel Center. You would sign in and state your role in the project, please.
So the third item under old business is this is for final, right? Sorry, my staff report says preliminary. I apologize for that discrepancy. They are requesting final. The applicant is requesting final approval for the proposed redevelopment of the former Rite Aid store into a Harris Teeter fuel station. This was at the December 16th, 2021 meeting where it received preliminary approval. These are I just go over the project again. All the mulch needs to be pine straw, and any trees that are removed require a tree removal permit. That's really the extent of my comments. They have addressed most of the concerns that were brought up at preliminary in December. So let's get over.
Hey everyone, I'm Megan Fitzsimmons. I'm with Kimley Horn. We're the civil engineer on the project. So bringing this back to you guys for final approval. I think majority of the comments from last time were just kind of adding a few other smaller site items to the renderings that we provided originally, just to make sure those were shown and properly screened. So we are showing, in addition to that screen wall behind the propane tanks, to make sure that those are screened from the internal drive that we were looking at last time. Also included on the renderings are the transformer box and the air vac. You need to see those. And other than that, just kind of nailing down the rest of our design. Nothing major has changed from the architecture since last time. We still have the brick kiosk that also matches the grocery store, in addition to the brick of the screen wall as well, and the brick of the columns and the canopy. Canopy color remains the same, the Hartford green that is on the Harris Teeter grocery store as well. And lots of kind of vegetation and screening along that screen wall that we added after our conceptual review. That's kind of generally it for the updates that have been made on this one. I'm happy to kind of roll through it and talk through any additional items as needed, but the majority of the stuff has changed since then.
Can you go to the landscape plan, please?
One thing we did actually find out as of 2 days ago is we won't really need a transformer box on this project. So even though we submitted with it being shown in the renderings, there's an existing pole along Bacon's Bridge where we should be able to get our power from. So that should get removed entirely anyway. But you will be able to see it on the renderings just for your reference. So
Tim, is it possible for you to zoom in to the
Yes.
where that you said it's propane tank screening?
yes, if you scroll all the way down on this one, The propane tanks are kind of along that drive out, yes. And we've got a wall right behind those that should screen them from the drive.
But there's no landscaping behind the wall on the curb.
Excuse me, sorry.
There's no landscaping behind the wall on the curb.
There's not enough room to fit both. We could fit like really small shrubs without the wall, but the wall being kind of a foot might take up the majority of the space in front of them.
Can't move that propane screening or propane storage somewhere else.
I think, and kind of needing to address with our client, but with the transformer being gone, they might be able to be relocated kind of to where that location is looking at right now, which will be behind the screen wall that's currently along Bacon's Bridge. I think that's the only other space on site that might fit them, since the rest of it's pretty tight.
I think we need to move that.
But that's my only thought there.
And Tim, could you, oh, it seems like there's a tree missing on the end island next to those 3 parking spaces on the right. Canopy tree. Right in there. Mhm. And what are the, looks like you've got one type of shrub or tree that's kind of going around on the bottom and on the left side. What are those?
The ones along the main drive in the shopping center.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe they're evergreens. I'm not a landscape architect, so I apologize. And they can be shown in the renderings too, but tried to find the biggest shrub possible to just help screen the center. That would actually grow
Hoon
kind of
holly, I think.
upwards.
It looks like the holly.
All right. And Tim, could you go to the renderings, please? Of that, show the entry road. Probably the next one. That's still on Bacon's Bridge, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there's not really one that,
I think it's towards the end if you keep scrolling through. I think it rotates the other direction.
gotcha.
This
Okay,
is it.
gotcha. All right. Yeah. Looks pretty robust, except at the wall. Alrighty. Thank you for that. And did anyone have any questions on site or? Well, I did want to see the detail of the wall, or if you can go, if you can see it in the rendering.
Yeah, it is in there as well for just a more defined detail in our engineering drawings.
I think the one on Beast Ferry Road had a precast cap on the top. This is just brick.
It should be towards the end of it. Yeah, there you go. It's in the top right corner.
Okay. All right. Okay, is your architect here?
No.
Okay, I've got some architecture questions. Can you go to maybe the elevations or even the pictures, I think?
These?
Yeah. The Beast Ferry one, we asked y'all to model it after the Beast Ferry
Mhm.
location. There's pictures of Beast Ferry. It's got a little bit better defined canopy or better looking canopy with this horizontal ledge. And the underneath of the building underneath of the canopy has a lot more detailing.
Mm.
And it's got the metal columns, or half of the columns are metal. Just want to kind of point that out to the board so we can get some discussion on it. And just the detailing to me is just a little bit better than the detailing for this.
So the kiosk itself is exactly the same as the Beast Ferry one. Apologize if our renderings don't show exactly the detail that's there, but it was designed and engineered exactly the same way. What this one does differ is the brick is coming all the way up in the canopy columns as opposed to the halfway with the metal being exposed. And then this one has just the white underneath the canopy as opposed to the roof. drains that are kind of flowing
Well, the
around the
doors,
bottom of the Beast Ferry one.
the doors are a different color. It's got a gutter on it for the Beast Ferry. The coping at the top is white instead of tan. It's got looks like the Beast Ferry one has a green roof on the top. It's got these little, almost like an I don't know what that is, but a little alcove or whatever that's called, but has some detail to it. So I think this is just a much better looking final solution than this is. I think we should be at least as good as Beast Ferry, if not better. This is Somerville. So just want to point that out to the board and just welcome more discussion.
Well, I think the kiosk should match the grocery store that's right next to it,
It does. So the coloring of the brick is exactly the same that's out at the grocery store right now.
and the coping.
I believe it should be the same. I will need to double check the coloring, but that was my understanding was the intent of it.
Mhm.
Well, I think those are good comments, Chris. I never leave Somerville, so I have no idea what they do in East Ferry. But I agree after seeing this picture, it is not only the framing, the green framing, but also the column. The brick column stops lower. And then the remainder column is steel versus the Somerville proposal, which is brick all the way up. And there's really not a view of the summer. Can everybody see this? Do they know what we're talking about? So I like the photograph because it shows more of what the building is, of how you're actually going to perceive it. Whereas the elevation you're showing is, nobody's really going to see that.
And we have renderings too. if
Do
that
you
helps.
have a rendering kind of a similar view as what Chris did?
This is the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's a good
but
example. So
similar,
if you
yeah.
compare this one to that, you can see how much more sort of detail there is, not only in the column, but in the ceiling underside, which I can't exactly tell what's going on from the photo, but it looks like there's some more trim and articulation versus just the flat ceiling. So I appreciate Chris's pointing that out, because I guess I didn't realize that. I think those are really good comments, and you can see how the brick kind of just runs up to the metal, whereas in this one, the brick comes up and then the steel piece of the column
Mhm.
and I don't know what you call those things, brackets, kind of help transition between the brick and the ceiling. So it's a nice design. And it does make ours look kind of like the budget version of what they did in Beast Ferry.
I think the other thing that would help is if there were actual, maybe you have it in here, I can't recall, but photos of the existing shopping center. Do you have those in here?
We have them of the site, of the existing site. I'm not sure if any of them are showing the existing grocery in the background. It would be further, I think, up towards. Yeah, a little hard to see. It's a little bit smaller of a picture, but the top one there is the grocery store in the background.
Any other comments? Any other thing you need, anything else you need to present that we need, anything else we need to present or that we need to look at? Like,
No, I guess
signs or,
the only thing I'd say just in regards to quality of this versus the renderings is just that this is a photo versus what we are able to come up with rendering wise. So the detail is there more than you're seeing in obviously the 3D renderings that we're creating in a program. Harris Teeter does create a very good quality product. It is going to match the grocery store that's out on site right now in regards to the brick and the finishes and everything like that, which we were driving out there earlier today. It does look really nice. So it would match generally what's in the shopping center right now.
can you walk us through the sign package real quick?
Just zoning information. This is signage on the canopy itself. So if you go down a couple, this will be on the brick columns just to signify which pump is which. Again, brick to match on the bottom of the signage, and then just Pricer's and Harris Teeter's logo on the top. And then if you keep scrolling, this is the canopy signage that's proposed. So just the smaller logo for Harris Teeter, which I believe should match Town of Somerville's code.
Yeah,
in regards to what's
it
allowed.
meets the 12 square foot max for the logo on the canopy.
And then if you scroll, I think down one more or two more, it should be the locations of where those are. So D being the larger monument sign and then the smaller locations being shown on the sides of the canopy.
All right, if there's nothing else, they're seeking, they're requesting final approval. Someone might like to make a motion. We can certainly discuss it.
I'll make a motion for final approval.
Is there a second? Okay, if there's not a second,
I'll second.
okay. Further discussion? For me, it would be a no of the, because the reasons noted regarding the canopy. Yeah, I think it's got to look at least as nice as Bees Ferry, you know, which is 15, 20 miles away. They need to look at least as nice as that. And
I don't think doing exactly what they did at Bees Ferry
Because this is Bees Ferry.
is the right thing either, but I think in concept that it's more involved than just running brick up to a metal ceiling. But something, you know, again, that's custom for the location, maybe with something with some meaning to Somerville. Again, I don't know what those curvy things represent, but they should represent something. It shouldn't be, oh, we thought this looked kind of neat. You know, if we can find something that's grounded in that part of town or Somerville in general or South Carolina, even in more general, something that has meaning. So, you know, some little kid is in the car and says, hey, what is that? You know, there's some story behind it. And it's a gas station. I'm not crazy about a gas station's location, period. But if you're going to do a gas station, let's do a nice gas station. And not just stick up some brick columns and a metal roof.
I think if you're gonna vote no, you need to give them some very clear direction on how to come back next time to get a yes vote.
for me, if they duplicated that or tweaked it a little bit for Somerville, they would get a yes vote.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were trying to provide you too, is just something a little bit different as well. Since I know we don't want to give you, you know, a complete prototypical building that's being shown everywhere and in every jurisdiction. So I guess, are there certain things about the Bees Ferry location, but with tweaks that you're specifically looking for that can kind of help push us in that direction?
Well, the underside is part of it. And I guess I need to go out there at some point, but it looks like they have some sort of trim or some plane change in the ceiling. It's not just a flat ceiling the way you're showing. I think the other thing we've mentioned is maybe the brick column shouldn't run all the way up to the top. Maybe they should stop a little shorter or find some way to transition abruptly from brick to flat metal. And I think that's what these columns and whatever that curvy thing does. They sort of transition between the two materials and the two different planes. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this gutter. It's hard to tell from the photo,
Can't
and,
tell.
and it looks like you're not providing a gutter. Is that right?
There are roof drains underneath the canopy that are providing that, yeah. So it's on the internal, yeah, it's not covered.
Internal
Mhm.
gutter system.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's open on the top before the roof. That picks up the drainage. and sends
Those,
it
I
down the
think, are the
canopy.
two ones I would look at. The column and the underside.
So in general, make the kiosk look like the grocery store and don't run the brick columns all the way to the canopy.
Plus the detail associated with underneath of the canopy. Or even how this canopy has more of an overhang past the mansard. I mean, for me, it's like, if you do that, we're 99% there.
There
for me.
another 1% that we need to be aware of.
Got a chance. No. Okay, so we have a motion. So now if there's no further discussion, we need to call for the vote. So all those in favor say aye. Okay. All those opposed to the motion for approval say no. No.
No.
So if you don't vote, you go with the majority.
I didn't vote,
Okay,
but it's okay.
okay. So Tim, it was denied final approval. So what are the next steps?
They can reapply next month for the same for final, just addressing those design details. It seems like the site in general is in pretty good shape. Maybe look at moving the propane sales to the former transformer site and then just addressing the specific design details on the canopy and kiosk.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next is the 208 North Cedar Street. If you would just sign in and state your name and role in the project, please.
So the fourth item on old business is a request for final approval of a proposed new 7,500 square foot two-story office building. The project was last year, December 16th, 2021, where it received preliminary approval. You know, as we pointed out in, at the last meeting, you know, it does meet the required setbacks at DMX. The elevations generally meet the design requirements. The applicant is trying to preserve the large oak on the property and trying to accommodate the larger oak on the adjacent property by providing gravel, possibly compact parking spaces. I just want to point out there is no minimum parking requirement in DMX zoning. And a bicycle parking rack detail must be provided. He did send that over to me today. He wants to use the same bicycle parking rack that was used on the adjacent building. So,
I've got it.
and that's acceptable, that it meets town requirements, so.
And I've got that cut sheet if anybody needs to see that. Tim, if you get us to
Yep.
the
One
elevation.
second. Want to walk through the pictures
Well,
that you
we
provided?
could, because last time I had an aerial shot and you wanted some good sight shots of the building. So I basically did just a perimeter with the existing building and the vista line. I lovingly recall the shack. Somebody broke into it a few days ago, and I'm not sure. I wish they would get something out of it, but they didn't. So at the last meeting, we had submitted 2 distinct elevations, and we had one that we preferred and an alternate asymmetrical elevation. And generally, the board was not keen on the asymmetrical, so we focused on the first elevation. And you asked for some new renders and the additional photos. Let's see, the comments were generally directed more towards the brick detailing, and we had some faux panels that created almost a 3-story look. And we were asked to give the building at least a more typical brick detailing. Show a comparison with the building next door. You were also not very, did not want to use white brick. So I have picked a new brick. This sample looks fairly light in this light, but it's really more browny. We did have samples at the last meeting, and I think I submitted some here. The wall section submitted more brown gray. Doesn't have that white or that pinkish color I think that you were concerned about. I have a couple other brick samples. I think the gray brown was suggested, or something in the all which I think would work with our color scheme. Just to try to go in that lighter brown. And there are some darker grays in that blend. Meridian Brick they were recently bought out. So although I can't get stuff off the website anymore. So I've had to go down there and try to gather what they think that they can get to me. This is the one that is on the render. This is the one that's on the render. Cordova.
Which of those 3 samples?
Well, I am asking for Cordova, but there was a lot of discussion about brick color last time, so I didn't. I'm not dogmatic about that. We like the color scheme. The general feedback that I felt like we got last time was to stay more in the brown, not get into the reds. You didn't want to do white. You didn't want to get that pinkish look that a white brick does. And this one with the regular mortar and the gray and a wall, the Cordova, the farthest one there on y'all's right. Doesn't.
Neither of those are the existing building.
No, they are not.
Which
No, and
one?
those renderings are pretty close to
Which
you know,
one?
the tones, the Cordova.
Really? Cordova's got some red in it. More red.
Let's see.
What's the middle sample? What color is that?
That is Onslow. That's a new color that they've got, I think from General Shell.
That looks more like this. I could be, you're right. No, but that Cordova's got kind of a red behind it.
I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with saying we don't like any of the brick and bring
What about
something
the
else
rest of
in.
the design? What's
Yeah.
everybody think about the rest?
Why don't you walk us through the design? We'll get to,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things we talked about last time was the sides of the building,
Mhm.
how we wanted you to consider taking the brick down the sides as well, because it kind of looks like the existing sides of the building are really visible. And it doesn't look, the sides don't look that
I think
great.
the right side won't be visible at all. And just the left side would be visible.
I think the right side closest to the
Yeah,
restaurant would not be
there's so many
visible.
trees along that line there that it's gonna be, and there's only one leaner there that we're gonna have to show removed, and the others are gonna stay, and it's basically a hedge.
You're returning brick now about 20 feet each side, right? From the front.
I think it's about 15, 17 somewhere
Okay.
on in there. I'd have to look at it.
About 20 would be good. I don't know if maybe it's an idea on the left side, just got the visibility to make the first floor brick all the way to the rear. You know, come back 20 feet, 2 stories, then go 1 story all the way to the rear, and then with your board and batten on the second level. That'd get you by with about, you know, half the brick that was going all the way. And it would kind of keep it tied in with the neighbor building, the first building. I don't know what
I
anybody
think-
else thinks about that, but I think that's a decent compromise.
Sorry to interrupt, Bill. I think with the last building next door, you had suggested bringing the brick to the 4 corners. And that is what is currently on the, I was hoping that one of the pictures would show it.
Does it show?
It
We're
doesn't.
moving so fast. I couldn't tell.
the cover page.
Yeah, it doesn't show, but on the back corners, both up and down, you can see. Unfortunately, these pictures don't show it right now, but it was one of your conditions actually suggested by you, Bill, that brick be added to the 4 corners. And just have the board and batten in between.
Yeah, that's another way to do it. And that, I think that would work just about as well if the rear corner looked like the front corner. That would be
We were
helpful.
going for, on that last plan, we were going for that white on, against the contrast of that darker, I think the color is called seal, on the backside of the building. We had been inspired by a boutique hotel in Charleston, so the whole rear of the building on it was a combination of cement board and I think actually metal. But I'm okay with doing the corners, or your suggestion of breaking the floors up. It might make it a little more,
I think the corners would be easier for you.
it is easier.
So it's just a pylon.
Easier to flash.
No, it'd be 20 feet of brick
Oh, okay.
extending down
Yeah, I think there's
Another
13,
bank.
the front
I think there's
corner
13 or 14.
to the rear and from the rear corner towards the front, just like the front, right?
Like that. Yeah.
Mimic the front corner with the rear corner, as far as the brick is concerned.
This goes like that.
Right, the windows, leave the windows the way they are, but
They look pretty good.
that'd be a good alternative.
Mhm.
It would even be better if you brought a water table up to the windowsill and ran it all the way down to the back.
Or do you do both, the water table
Yeah,
and
do both, yeah,
Gotcha.
so do both.
brick water table at the windowsill, and
Yeah,
then the 4 corners?
then the 4 corners, that would really tie it all together, I think. What do you think, Greg?
Well, can we look at the floor plan again?
The floor plan?
Floor plan. Yeah, because, you know, we're trying to be about honesty and truthfulness and authenticity. And if there's something going on in the floor plan that would justify a special treatment, I think you do a special treatment. So where you have the brick now, that's the main entrance. So, you know, that deserves something. And in the floor plan, if you look at that back area, you know, is there anything significant? Like here you have like the reception on the left, so that's kind of like a special thing. And it would make sense to give it special treatment in the back if those offices are like normal, just an office. But you dress up the outside like it's something special and it's not really. It's kind of antithetical to, you know, what traditional architectural design is, where you make the outside reflect the important things on the inside. And if it's just kind of the same stuff back, why pretty it up if it's just the same stuff that's next
Well,
to
you know,
it? So,
our design is to try to watch the budget also, which
Yeah.
is, you know, so, you know, we didn't put the brick on the other building, but it's a lot more visible on that bank side than this one's going to be. And that right side is really not going to be seen.
yeah, I mean, I like stopping the brick where you have it. I think
It's okay.
it brings the building.
I can live
anchors
with
the
that.
building,
let's just go with that.
And the rest
Let's
of it's
go with
just
that.
a simple.
Instead of gilding the lily, let's just go with that. Just return it back 20 feet on the front, each side, each front corner. And then go with that.
I think the overall design is better than it was the last time, because before we were struggling with the two different
Yeah, well,
ideas.
first it was
Mhm.
two identical, it was the identical, then it was two different.
Two
And
different.
I think you
Now
come
it's
back
kind of
and
a
it seems like,
compromise.
okay, that's,
I like the detailing of the entry all the way to the roof. I think that from ground up, I think the front entry really looks good.
Well, if I could mention, you mentioned the portico, and we did add the lower,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, awning portico,
Sure.
which
I see
also
it
Gene had already
right here.
told me that was going to come up, so it wasn't a surprise.
Good move, Gene.
Yeah. So, you
Yeah.
know, I wanted to keep that two-story look at that foyer. And
Well, I think
it's
that,
much narrower than the other building. If you look at those two side by side.
I think you pulled it off. I think it looks good. What does everybody else think?
It does.
Well, one comment, would it be better if the second floor windows had more articulation rather than being a punched opening?
Rather than being one.
Rather than being a punched opening,
You talking about the typical 4 on each side of the front entry,
correct?
Either side.
Yeah.
either side of the entry,
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
the upper story.
Well,
Well,
it's got.
I-
Well, they've got a header detail. They got a brick header detail and they got a brick sill detail. I don't know much more you can do with that.
Well, the window, like the first floor windows have an intermediate horizontal.
They got it in the window itself, yeah.
That
So
might-
you're talking about maybe putting a mutton bar at the midpoint, like
Well,
a
the
double
upper-
hung window,
the
or
upper part, not
or
right
at
in
the upper part,
not
like
right in the middle,
the
but
bottom window
just a
is.
little bit more metal than.
You got a horizontal mutton, like a transom light. You can do that.
I played with, you know, we played with a couple of different combinations.
Why don't we do
The other
that?
elevation, I really like the other elevation better, at least the balance of it didn't have the lower awning. So we did the lower awning. I wanted to try to keep as much glass, and that seemed to give it a pretty good balance.
I mean, that would help if you did that with all the windows down the side too.
I would.
So why don't we make that a,
Yeah, instead of putting it in the middle, unless those double hung windows? Are those double hung windows?
oh, I see, they are in the middle on the side.
Yes, they are.
Well,
Move up.
maybe where the brick is, if it was the,
The transom light bar.
Transom
All
light.
even on the front, but
we just do where the brick is.
Just do it. Well, that's all you would need to, because you already got the double hungs on where the siding is.
Mhm.
So where the brick is, just in the front and the side, just put the horizontal button and the transom light height, like you've done on the first floor. And then all we really need to get is the brick, right?
And I kind of like that one in the middle. I've never seen it on
The
a
one in the
building.
middle I like.
I like the brick that's right outside the
I
window here.
brought that one and nobody else had really liked it, but
Yeah, it's kind of,
I like the brick right out there. That brick right out there, right outside the window out there. Yeah, that's perfect brick. Yeah, town hall's the same color. Because that's part of town hall.
Gotta go beside the
I
other
brought,
building.
I brought more with me. I brought the old cypress and
Yeah.
Savannah gray might be closer to that one,
Savannah, I like that better.
but yes, I do.
Cypress. and
These I am not
Savannah.
sure would be available. So,
Who knows what's available?
well, yeah, these are supposedly I can get
Yeah.
these.
The last time we talked about earth tones, and I like red brick too, but I think the red is,
I think it's too much
indicative.
next to the other building.
well, I'm thinking in Somerville, red is good for like a public building.
But not
Well, the brick
necessarily
across
run
the
off.
CPW, you know,
That's
that's.
kind of
that
like,
was a
that-
comment.
that's
even
good
though that's
color.
not a public building, it's kind of, water is
It is.
typically a public thing, so.
That's
you know,
pretty
if we say
public.
In Somerville, the red is gonna be like, it's either historic or it's a public community, and if it's business, maybe red's not the right color. And your existing building is a nice earth tone, and if we could find a complementary earth tone, which is brown, tan, cream,
Mhm.
whatever, I think that would be a good fit. Can you go back to the picture of the existing? I don't know what you would call that color, but something that's,
I just don't think the red would look good next to that.
it's
though.
it's like too different versus you don't want the
Well,
exact same.
with the darker colors they've got on this building at the entry and the darker colors
Mhm,
on the siding,
mhm.
that brick would be okay as far as I'm concerned. Same brick
With
Along-
different siding.
with the different color on the siding,
That
right?
might be enough.
Dark color, that would be enough for me. You can just use the same brick.
That's
Go with the darker color on your front entry like you've already got on the rendering. And the darker color like you've already got on your rendering on the sides and rear. That would meet everybody's approval.
Great idea to me.
I don't know that I'm understanding what.
You're using the same brick you used on the first build,
Mhm.
same brick. Darker color on your center entrance like you've got now. You've got almost a bronze color on your entry and and you got a cornice that's got that darker bronze color kind of.
Well, I
And
think
the siding's darker bronze color, kind of color.
I think finding a brick that works with the siding color is important.
I do
And,
too.
and just saying we'll match the existing, that may, when you actually see the two together, may not.
I think, well, they got bronze, see if they've got on their coping, they've got bronze on the original building.
Yep.
And it looks okay with the brick, and it would be the same match on this building, but you got more bronze because you got it on your siding. You got a more pronounced
I
cornice,
think on the existing building, the bronze cornice is pretty small.
very
That's
small,
Very small, but in the
3
new
inches.
building, you're gonna have a lot of this
more
color,
dominant, right,
because
Mhm.
you have
yeah.
bigger cornice, the centerpiece, the windows. I think you need to find something that works with that color.
think-
And again, I think the one in the middle might be okay, but I would like to see the trim color and the hardy plank color next to the proposed brick.
Does he have those?
I'm pretty sure I uploaded.
I'm pretty sure it's in here.
If we're just coming down to brick, I'm wondering if we either approve one of the ones he's got, or we just say during construction, sample panels,
Sample panel.
even if it's just those with the
Two
painting,
sample panels
out
to
there.
look at,
yeah. That might be, kind of get
So I
us
think
there.
that's, his design's pretty good this time. It really, actually is better than the other building.
That's what we try to do, is do better than the other building. I think it is better than the other building.
Mhm.
All right,
We keep at it, we're gonna get really good at it.
Do another building.
I actually like this one and this one.
okay, so
Either one,
um,
don't busy it up.
Bill, you were very enthusiastic about the presentation. Do you want to make the?
You want to make a motion? We can discuss it further, but
I make a motion that we give grant final approval based on the comments made, which apply to the brickwork at each of the side corners, front and rear. We like the front entry, the 4 windows on the front and the 2 on each side would have a horizontal member added at a transom window height. And the brick would be whatever y'all pick, make 2 sample panels utilizing any of those bricks down there.
Well, I think something that's compatible with the siding.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be one of those.
doesn't have to be one of those y'all pick, but
Two
just 2
choices,
sample
something.
panels compatible with the siding.
And I agree with
for
that.
Final approval.
Other than I'd like to amend that to not have the corner brick in the back.
I don't
think-
think we need the
I
corner
don't
brick
think
in
we,
the
I
back.
think the design where they have the brick is.
That's
great.
fine. We,
Siding
that's
is great.
fine. Yeah.
I
And
agree
it's,
with that.
yeah, I think it's the window and the
Yeah.
brick
So
color.
you accepted that amendment.
Yeah.
All right, is there, that's for final approval,
Final approval.
yeah, with conditions. Is there a second? Any further discussion? Any questions you have before we? Okay. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good.
Next is the Miles Jamison Road Fire Station.
All right, so the first item under new business is a request for preliminary approval of a proposed new Town of Somerville Fire Station number 6. This being their first meeting, Town Council still has the authority to approve the site plan for property zoned public lands, which this is zoned public lands, obviously. The design of the building is reviewed by the DRB. The proposed building includes split face CMU brick, standing seam metal roof, and storefront windows. It's pretty straightforward. This is a piece of property on the Pine Trace tract over off of Miles Jameson, just past the roundabout, next to the Coastal Center. So,
Tim,
yes.
the only thing is on the sheet that you described, that not on the agenda. It's not on the agenda, it's on the recommendation sheet. The address says it's on Old Trolley Road, and I think that's just an error.
That's the typo.
It's a big error. I mean, it's a big typo. It's on Miles Jamison Road. I mean, all the documents are correct. It's just the sheet.
Which did I? Is it?
It's under staff comment.
It's the sheet that has staff comments on it.
There's no existing building.
You know, I pulled some of the detail, not some of
You
the
pulled it
details.
from another submittal or something.
I probably reused an old staff report.
Okay.
Location 208 North Cedar, that's what it is.
No,
No.
no,
Yeah,
no, it says Old Trolley Road on it. If you scroll, it's there.
In fact, we just
We
saw
just
it.
looked at it right here. There it
Staff
is.
report.
Location, 1701 Old Trolley Road.
You know what? I
Got the wrong
pulled,
job.
I pulled the old staff report and put
Okay,
it
I just
into
wanted to make
this.
sure.
You're-
Because I
you're
was
right. I
reading that and I was
apologize.
looking at the other thing and going, this isn't right.
So I read the actual staff report that I wrote for this one.
Okay,
But
thank
apparently
you.
it got the from fire station number 5 that went up on trolley. That was the
Right.
last one that came through you guys.
Right.
I
It's
pulled the
okay,
wrong
just so
one.
I wasn't going crazy, that's fine.
No, you're correct. I apologize.
Wrong fire station.
That was been finished for 5 years.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's pretty good too.
So I will turn it over to the applicant. And where do you want to start?
You can go, we can start right there. And I'm Ryan Hardwick with ADC Engineering. I'm the engineer project, our project architect and landscape architect, weren't able to make it today. So with any comments on that, I'll do the best I can and take really good notes. But just to start here, like Tim said, this is, I guess, to the left side of the roadway there is the Pine Trace track. Planning to be a future park area. Just south you can barely see it is Eugene Sire School. And then Miles Jameson Road, obviously just north of our site, and Coastal Centers to the right. The reason we have kind of awkward viewport layout here, just to give you a heads up, is we're thinking the sewer, or actually we know at this point the sewer will have to be pumped off site. There's not sewer along Miles Jameson Road. So we'll have a new lift station that will pump straight down that area. I don't know if you can see it or not, but area 3, 4, and 5, and tie into an existing gravity main down at the, I guess, east side of area 5 there. That's all I have for that sheet. I guess we're the only ones that are here for the first time. This is actually my first time here, so I can give you as much or as little information as you guys like. If you have any questions, slow me down.
I think it'd probably be good to tell us a little bit about the site,
Yeah.
the existing conditions, that sort of thing. Walk through just briefly why you situated the building the way you did, you know, how the access works or
Okay.
something like that, just kind of big picture. Just general review of the site, and then we'll get into architecture after.
Okay. A good one to look at in particular for this site being a fire station is, actually, I don't have that on here yet. I've been working, since we submitted this, we'll have a fire protection plan that I guess will show an actual fire truck entering and exiting the site. But what we have, I guess, on the right-hand side here is our entry drive. That's a two-way in and out, entry exit. That's where the emergency vehicles will enter. It's also where people coming to the fire station or the workers will enter and exit as well. We do have quite a bit of parking. That's for shift changes to make sure, I guess, everyone coming in and out at the same time will all fit in the same parking lot. We've been told that's been an issue in the past on some fire stations, so they want to make sure we have plenty to start off with. The fire truck will loop down south and head west to the rear of the building and enter through 2 bays right there. They then exit out the front, and there's actually a half bay for a EMS truck, which would either have to enter through the back and then back in. I guess that is the way they would enter through the back, come all the way through the bay, and then have to back into that one. One thing to note here is we've been discussing preliminarily with DOT the driveway, the entry exit driveway on the right. I don't think there's any issue with that. The one on the left is wider than they would typically allow. I think it's about 36 feet wide plus maybe a 35-foot radius on each side. So that could potentially be pinched down to where trucks come out, and then maybe it's more like a 24-foot or even, I don't know, 30-foot wide. Kind of lessen that driveway entrance area. Let's see, grading wise, I don't think we'll be able to see much on that. That's a dimensioning plan, but 300 or 301, you can go back to that one.
301. Oh, there we go.
So this is our grading plan. We have a pond towards the south end of the site. We're thinking basically all the water or all the new pervious areas on site will grade down to that pond and exit through a control structure and enter into the west side of the site. There is an existing ditch to where all of the water at this time, or I guess pre-development, makes its way into that ditch and exits into eventually gets into a wetland area over there to the left of our site.
Do you have some of the parking in the easement? Looks like that might be a.
We do, and that's another discussion we're having early on of if that'll be allowable. But it is, if I'm not mistaken, that's the water easement. The first one, so we have, I have to check back, but there's several easements there. I think it goes something along the lines of communications and telephones in the first one, powers in the second. Actually, the farthest one to the right is blank. So then it goes communications, power, and water. So that's where we'll get all those 3 utilities from. But to answer your question, yeah, we do have at this time, we do have some parking in that easement. Let's see here. I think that's all I really need to hit on that. If you want to click to 411 is our utility plan.
Are those utilities in the easement, are they overhead or underground?
The
Water's gonna be underground, obviously.
power's overhead. Power's
And I think your comm is too.
that's right.
So you're
Oh, no,
talking, you're talking about
I think Tom's underground.
there, going through the woods like that? I doubt it. I think it's on the poles. So if it's on, my point is, if you're on the poles, you can park on it. If it's on the ground, you can't park on it.
Agreed.
So,
Well, you can see it on here. Bring it out landscape.
yeah, is it overhead?
It just says.
Yeah, if you could zoom in, you should be able to see it on this one. If you could zoom into kind of that top
Yeah,
right
but
corner of the parking
you
lot.
got P for poles. You don't have any. See, this is water. So you're going over water.
Parking in the water.
Well, they're not parking on it on this plan. See, on this plan, you're not parking on it. It's on this plan that you are. Yeah, but not enough to sneeze at.
Yeah, the landscape
So
drawing. that-
you don't have a conflict on this landscape plan like you do on this plan.
Yeah, I think the landscape drawings you guys have is a little dated. We've updated it since then. But we do plan to put parking there if we can get that approved. I think that's a Somerville CPW easement.
It is water, so.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll let you park on their water.
They have in the past.
They do.
There's a pretty good relationship though between the town and
They probably work together. You're on,
Yeah.
you're on the board, Steve. You ought to know.
there's a pretty good relationship between the town and the town.
Make a phone call.
Yeah, so we looked into putting some of that parking down towards the south side of the site, where the pond area is at, but you start running out of pond area really quick. That was our issue there. We kind of tried to move it as far up as we could and still meet the number that was required. And then that gap you see in between those first, I guess on the right-hand side, between those first two parking areas, that's where our gas line and our water line will enter.
Really, no matter what we say, town council's gonna approve the site plan, not us. We only have authority to approve the building.
Well, you guys can give some direction on doing that. They ultimately will approve it.
Right.
But I mean, generally speaking, I think this is a situation where I think it's been designed properly to meet the needs of the fire department. And if it wasn't meeting specific requirements of, like setbacks and things like that, that's where town council comes in and says, we're approving it the way this is set up. But it's meeting buffers, it's meeting other setback requirements, et cetera. So just to clarify that statement, if you see something that's needs to be addressed specifically, we can do that at this time, but ultimately the final say and approval does come from town council on the layout.
Yeah, I don't really have any issues with the site plan. I'm just pointing out parking in the easement, which is not my concern, our concern, so.
Yeah,
just
that's something
trying to
we're
be
still
helpful.
working through.
That's something I gotta work out.
Yeah.
And
Part of
so-
what drives that is they have a future need, 5 years, 6 years for that square between the pond and or something to support the fish.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess that's that dashed in line there. I know it's tough to see on the screen, but that's a future, I believe it's gonna be just like a maintenance shed building, something along those lines. But we've been told to map out a 50 by 50
Okay.
space.
Move on to the building.
Okay,
I think we're good on plan.
okay. Anything landscape wise, comments? I guess while we're getting to the building, I'll just ask a quick question. Will we get, I guess, a formal comment letter?
Mhm.
Okay, good. So we can easily provide responses to everything. Not a very fast note taker up there.
Hard to do.
Landscape plan, this actually, I'll just hit on this very quickly. This is a little bit out of date. Our landscape architect has been coordinating the mitigation required. This gives an astronomical number of mitigation. It is a pretty heavily wooded site. But we were told that basically the two areas we need to account for, oddly enough, are all the easement areas on the right that don't have any trees in them right now. So we have no tree removal over there. And then the area to the far left, there's a 30-foot buffer over there that we're also not taking any trees out at all. So I think our requirement was to meet 160 inches per acre, and we're well above that. And our next updated plan will reflect that.
Pine Trace is a PUD.
Mhm.
So if you haven't already, probably already have, just go look at the PUD. There may be some language in that affects the mitigation and removal of trees and stuff that may benefit you. So just make sure you're in compliance with that PUD.
Okay.
Just double check.
All right. I appreciate it. And that's all. If you want me to try to speak on some landscaping things, I can try my best, but I don't have any specifics. Okay. Yeah. So these are our elevation views. Again, I can't speak too much to these, anything particular, but I guess at the top, you can see your 3 open bays for the two on the right are the fire truck exits. The one on the left will be that EMS exit I was speaking about earlier. And then your main entrance is right there, kind of center of the rest of the building. That west elevation have some windows that do open outward. I think we do have a few AC units over on that side that may not be reflected on my utility plan yet. And then an exit door over there. The north elevation at the rear of the building. Let's see, from right to left, I'm pretty sure that door, I'll have to check on the floor plan once we get to that, but I think that door exits the dorm areas, or is right beside it. And then the second door to the right will exit cafeteria, or not cafeteria, but I guess like a break room kitchen area. Also to the rear of the building will be, I guess, somewhat of our mechanical electrical area. Not 100% sure what we'll be required to have yet. I do know that we have an emergency generator that is just to the right of those two entry doors. And then on the east elevation, we do have an exit door over there that will have a small sidewalk going around to it. But that will be facing towards a wooded area. So not too much going on over on that side.
Red brick.
I'm a little,
Public.
they're asking for preliminary. I'm a little torn on this building. I think it looks pretty good generally. I understand it's a public project and public funds and all that stuff. And it's not a bad looking building, but I've been paying attention to buildings that are being built, Charleston and Mount Pleasant, fire stations. So on Meeting Street, which is, you know, of course, obviously
Have you seen the
downtown.
new one on Folly Road? It's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
They look really
It's
nice.
gorgeous.
And they're kind of this,
Modern and open and
Yeah.
light and bright and this one's
Um,
kind of closed.
yeah, and this is it's just not as good looking as some of the buildings I've seen in other municipalities. I know we take a lot of pride in Somerville, pride in our buildings, pride in our culture and history and all that. And I just think the building, just as a general statement, just does not look as good as some of the other things I've seen. And I would much prefer, sure there's more articulate ways to say it, but just better architecture. Like I'm seeing in Mount Pleasant and Charleston and West Ashley, Savannah Highway. They just look a lot better than this, almost like a gem that the city can be really proud of and point to and people want to go to. And it's kind of iconic. To me, this is It's not that. And I'm torn. I mean, I get it. Again, I know it's public money and all that, but it's just, I'm a little disappointed. Let's just say it that way. You know, I'm not angry or whatever. It's just not as good as what I've seen in other areas. I just offer that up for discussion.
I think the ones in Charleston are kind of, Charleston County are a little over the top. And
Well,
it's
they're
almost,
pretty
it's
massive.
like,
they
look
are.
at me. And I don't think Somerville is a look at me kind of place. Now, that being said, to me, it would be helpful to know how many fire stations do you have that are newer? So I know there's one up by where I live in Knightsville. It's 4 or 5 years old. Then there's one on Trolley.
Probably.
I can answer some.
Well, what I'd like to do is to have pictures of your family, like you would have at
See
home
what
on your
those look like.
mantelpiece, and say, well, you know, first kid out of the chute was like, okay, and then the second one, you know, we did these little changes. They all look like the same family. They belong to the same organization, but they're not carbon copies. And there's something about each subsequent one which does raise the bar, as Chris is suggesting, but it's not going like this raise. And just make each one a little nicer. And the other thing that's really important to me is place. So that part of town
Mm.
is really, really interesting. And because there's a lot of wetland. And we have the coastal center there that has had a bunch of different activities going on. It's generally been a community resource for people who need help. You know, what can you draw from that location that influences this design of this building? Because I look at this and I say, I think that building could be any place in the entire country in a non-urban area. But, you know, we're trying to say Somerville's special. It has a great history. It has great people. The landscape has a lot of variety. And how is that fed into the design? And how do you come here and articulate the why of the design and why this is a really good fit? It fits in with your family, but it addresses the unique needs, the unique characteristic of that location. And I look at this and I say, I just don't get it. It looks like a building,
plain.
but it
It's
doesn't look
plain.
like
Mhm.
any thought at all was given to the importance of architectural design. It looks like, oh, here's a fire station. It has big doors. It's made out of brick and it has a big roof.
I think if this were an office building, say, that was not a public building.
Might be okay.
No, I think if it was an office building, I wouldn't feel torn about saying, no, you gotta do it. You gotta do it better
Oh,
because,
you mean you don't want them to spend money because it's public money.
right.
But I tell you what, it feels to me, it feels closed and dark and unapproachable. Is the
Mhm,
way it feels to me.
mhm.
Um,
And this is not this is what this is the side the public sees, but it's not it's not where the public's gonna enter. So it'd be good to see that left-hand side, see
Oh,
what
the
that's
public
like.
wouldn't enter here?
No, the public enters in the parking lot.
Yeah,
On
but
the
you
left.
drive by this, so it's
Oh,
important.
okay.
That's what you'll
from-
see
Okay.
every day.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is the part. you
But
see
some, I mean, for instance, I know Somerville, we did an architectural study years ago. Somerville is known for black roofs on the residential buildings. So obviously this isn't a residential building, although there are people that stay there overnight. But should this have a black roof? And I know the pushback is a white roof is cooler and all that, but that's, I think something, this does not look like Somerville architecture was studied and said, all right, this is what informed this design, or even necessarily coastal architecture. Do we have that the left entrance at all?
No, not from this, from a rendering perspective, we have.
No, I didn't see it.
So that's the,
So that, I guess just to clarify a little bit, that left door isn't a main entry point.
okay, so they
The
walk,
public will enter through the front.
okay, park on the left, walk in front of the building.
That's
Right.
right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, you have to from the way it's drawn.
I'd make the roof dark. I'd make the overhead doors dark and roll with it. But I would just change those colors from the light
Yeah,
colors.
but I would say, you know, it's the why. Why do that? It's not, I think we get too caught up in, well, it looks cool. And
But do
I'm
you,
more like,
why do you need it though?
what's the meaning behind it? What value does you know, you look at the value of having a good fire department. It's critical to the community. How do you translate that into an architectural design? Because I would look at this and say, the building's expression is not a true reflection of the people who work for that department. Because they're not boring. They're not just cookie cutter. They're unique individuals who are, you know, dedicated their lives
true.
and their physical safety to serving the community. What can you do to the architecture to reflect that? And to me, it's not what they do in Charleston. Look at me. I don't think your firefighters are out there. Hey, look at me. Just doing their job. I'd like to see the building do something to acknowledge the value the firefighters give to the community, not just, oh, here's a building. This is the cheapest way of spanning that open. This is the
Well,
easiest way. of
maybe I watch
connecting.
too much television with firefighters, but they spend a lot of time in this building and it is a boring building. It's boring. Okay. Where they're going to spend time is boring. There are not enough windows. There's not enough light. It's.
including the outside. We're gonna spend a lot of time outside and it's,
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm,
it's kind of, yeah, we might have a picnic table or something.
mhm.
But it's just, there's not a courtyard, there's nowhere to, these guys have a lot of downtime, or at least time where they're there. It just needs to be,
Cooling down time before the next
Right,
thing comes,
right.
you know.
it just needs to, if we make it, these are folks that need it really well thought out, really, I'm not saying ostentatious by any means, but just nicely
Sort of
done, nicely
campfire.
thought out, places to go outside to reflect, you know, and like I said, plan for the next event and all that. So I just think it needs more design and more
Yeah.
places for them. And it'd be super helpful next time if the architect can come.
Okay.
I know this
yeah, I'll-
situation's come up, I'm not, so I get it, but we need to have a discussion, architect to architect,
Mhm.
really.
Understood.
about
Is
why.
there, I guess, is there some specifics I could relay to them, without changing, I guess, the functionality of the building? I think it's just pretty much set in stone.
Well, the functionality of the building is just the floor plan, really.
So
So-
I guess,
Bill had a suggestion of, you know, changing the colors and calling it a day, but I think
It needs
for me,
more
it
than a
needs
color
more.
change.
Oh, interested in hearing any of the backdrop, I could share with y'all.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Sure.
Yes,
But Steve, if you would,
no problem. Steve Newer, 'cause I'm Bill, we're the contractor. The way this project unfolded, it was advertised to bid. A lot of us bid it. We were not the low bidder. The town went through,
It was design build too.
it went through an evaluation process. We were awarded, we actually were third. We were awarded as best value. We took the approach, others were gonna, from what I understand, we're gonna price with a metal building box. The most recent construction for fire stations in the town have been metal building
Mhm.
structures. Trolley Road, Chief Warren Station, Air Warren Station, and then one over off of front of high school. Tear downs and build backs. Okay. This station, if you will, most resembles the one in Knightsville. We approached the bid process a little differently because of components, metal building industry, costs, COVID, production, lead time, all those sorts of things. So this construction is load bearing CMU, veneered brick, truss system with an architectural fancy roof of whatever color that would be approvable. Chief Warren, through our peeling the onion, this footprint is the best so far for them through their history and the other ones for a functionality standpoint, systems. So that's short version, how we got to where we got. Value, costs, elements, time when they need it built and constructed, you know, because of other circumstances that are over my head. I understand how we as residents and insurance premiums paid and how fire protection, you know, is important and has been for decades. So, but, so that's how we got to where we got. And, you know, we can do anything, obviously, and we'll address anything regarding architecture or site placement or landscape or whatnot. It is a peculiar site because of the traffic circle, the elevation transition is pretty steep from that traffic circle up to, and they're entering and exit. Obviously, they're life safety folks. I've been part of those conversations. It's going to be pretty interesting, and there may have to be some elements added later related to traffic and lighting and stop and stuff. All just being out there a good bit like I have been, it's people roll pretty quickly through there. So again, I mean, we're here to make it be what it's supposed to be, and all of y'all's input is important. So that's ultimately the way it's supposed to go.
You got porches front and back, nice screen porch in the back, porches in the front open. I'd make the porches a little bit bigger, change the colors and roll with it.
And I would love as a contractor to and as a taxpayer in Somerville. But you know, I don't want to be Charleston. I don't want to spend their numbers for a fire station, $1,000 a square foot.
Right.
I don't think we are as prudent financial stewards, you know, and taxpayers, all of us want to do that.
Well, and that's a very good explanation. I appreciate that. And I agree with particularly last statements. We want to be good stewards of money and all that. And it's not a line in the sand for me, anything that I said previously. I just look at it and I wish it were better, you know, because, you know, we all drive downtown and go, well, man, look at that. And then we drive by this one and go, architecturally, it's just, okay. Now, does it serve a great purpose? Absolutely. No one can argue that. That's needed. Absolutely. But it's just, I just wish it could be better.
Yeah, there's a lot of buildings in Somerville that I think are very economical, but they're very nice.
But they're nice.
And if, you know, people love downtown Somerville, and I'm always like, okay, point out a really great building in downtown Somerville. Well, you know, they're not great, they're just nice. And I think that's what we're looking for here. Just a nicely thought out, nicely detailed building. And I can understand why the town was willing to pay more for CMU and brick versus metal building. That all makes sense. But since you have the brick anyhow, there's a lot of things you can do with the brick. And other than building what looks like a dentist office or something equally as, you know, ordinary. So there's a challenge here. I wouldn't say anything specific to the architect other than, you know, have them come and explain why. Why is it like this? Why does it reflect Somerville? Why does it reflect the specific area in Somerville? And let's see what he or she has to say. And again, I think having the other
Sister buildings.
for reference would be very helpful. I like the one in Niceville. I think it's nice, but Niceville is not the same as Miles Jameson Road. They're very, very different. You know, we're very flat, and there is some wetland, but it's flat and it's high. I think it all used to be farmland. I don't know. It's pretty high. And you get into here, and as you say, you know, there's a lot of up and down. There's a lot of swale. There's a lot of unbuildable area. It's just different.
Steve, I think this design basically the town gave everybody that booked this job. So the town picked this look. And it was given, the fire department picked this look. It's given to all, what, 7, 8 contractors that ordered this thing.
I understand.
On a design and build basis. This is what it looked like. So everybody was bidding the same appearance. How you got that, you know,
Yeah, and I'm
everybody
very,
bid metal buildings.
I'm very familiar with-
Steve used to, you know, residential construction, so some of the wood bearing
Maybe
masonry
put some shutters
wood
on.
trusses.
I understand the design build. We do a lot of design build in our firm. The idea of design build is you give extremely preliminary drawings. You don't say, this is exactly what it's supposed to
Well, the
look
floor
like.
plan and the building were given. to the
Floor
contractor.
plan, that's right. I understand.
Mhm.
Bill,
And
I know how
building
design build works. I'm just
And
telling
the
you,
site plan. and the
But-
site plan.
but you're not, when we get those, when we're on the design end, we don't just take it, photocopy it, stretch it, and plaster it on our title sheet.
It was what the town asked for. They asked for this. That's what they did.
Yeah, I guess what I'm encouraging the town to do is modify the design, consider modifying the design. Take what we had into consideration. They don't want to do it, they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's over my, that's over my pay grade, and y'all know better than me, although I do know, so and this isn't a whatever. So if you price something in November and you're
Yeah.
delivering it in June, you're gonna pay more for every single element.
Mhm.
Right.
We know.
Again,
These days, again.
All I would ask-
yeah, the town went with best value, but we weren't the low guy.
Right. All I would ask
And-
is if you would help communicate our
Oh, absolutely.
opinion and, you know, Bill, very, very valid comments, right? That you had. Just push our comments forward, all of them. And, you know, we can do the same and have the discussion to want to do better. And then if it's no, it's no. I mean, we get it, but I felt like I had to say that. So, but I think we need to move on. They've asked.
We do.
for
Well,
preliminary approval.
having been part of the town as long as I have been, I'm guessing you guys are just checking the box, bringing it to us. Is there a reason why you're going for preliminary approval, not final?
Yeah, I guess I can answer that too. We were more or less told that that was.
It's the process, but like
That we had to go preliminary before we could get.
council's gonna do what they're gonna do, and you guys are just checking the box.
We needed to be here.
I understand you need to be here. However, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, so.
I would imagine they are, but you know, that they want y'all to function as you're here.
I think we can give our recommendations. I think
Like by ordinance, we're required to approve buildings.
understand. What I'm trying to do is push us to a final approval.
Oh, right now.
Absolutely. If the board is,
So I can do
I
that.
don't want to push the final approval if the board's not going to vote in that direction, but I don't want them to have to come back because ultimately it doesn't matter what we say. They're going to do what is best for the town as they should do.
As they should do.
That's right.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for final approval.
Right, is there a second?
I'll second it on the condition that the doors are black and the roof's black. And the screen porch is 2 feet bigger in depth.
Better white.
Then could I offer this as an amendment or just a comment or whatever? That just to at least, I'm fine with the final approval. But just the sentiment of at least a couple members on the board that consider designing a better building.
I don't disagree with you, but they specifically asked
This one.
for this building.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what comments we give them, this is the building they're gonna end up with. So I don't want to delay this process another month for them to come back for.
And we're
Final
still gonna
approval.
approve the building.
Okay, well, there's any further discussion?
So to clarify, legitimately, the final approval, are we considering the roof color, the door color, and the bigger porches?
We would like them to consider that, yes.
That's a comment, not a condition, just a comment.
Just comments.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote. If you're in favor of final approval with conditions. Right.
Right.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Well, y'all skated out of that.
All right, last order of business under miscellaneous election of officers.
Yes, so currently Chris Campo is the chairman. Chris Carpus is the vice chairman who is not here today. I think with my other board, they voted just to maintain the status quo. If you have an alternative decision, you can obviously make nominations. It is up to the board to do so.
I'm fine with staying as it is. If someone else wants to a crack at being the chair, be my guest. That's
Well, as a general rule of thumb, I always like to give the person who's not here more responsibility than they have.
I agree.
Teach them a lesson. But
Take care of. Well, if you make him vice
I
chair,
think,
that'll still
let's
give him
maintain status
responsibility.
quo, but definitely punish Chris by making him have to renew his.
Let's make Carpus the chairman, let's make Hart the vice chairman.
Oh, my.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'll make a motion that we maintain the chair and vice chair that we had this year.
so I think Chris has done a very good job.
Fantastic job.
You are very, I think you make the meetings come across very professional. And I think that's very important, not only to the board, but to the town. To have, professionally run meeting, following the rules, acknowledging people correctly, and making sure that the board members are listened to. So I think you're doing great. I wouldn't change it.
You want to do a second?
Second.
thank you.
I think it's going extremely well. And they're responsible for the job.
Greg, I think you made the second, right? That would be a second.
Second with comments.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Done.
All right,
Great.
good. Call for adjournment.
Pick up. Good.
Good job.